Hey, what's going on, guys? Doug back again, Recording Connection Audio Institute. Today we are taking a look at your edit modes. In this section of the book, we're going to be talking about all of the sections on your Pro Tools 10 toolbar, which is this section here at the top of your Pro Tools edit window. We're going to just have one video for each one of these sections and try to cover it really quickly, and we'll get to them all and hopefully give you a greater understanding of what you can do with each one of these. So we'll start here with our edit modes, which is the top left-hand corner of the screen. Really quickly, the key commands to access each one of these. So we'll start with the accent key. If you hit the accent key, it cycles between each one of the 4 grid modes available to you. Shuffle, slip, spot, and grid. Also, you can access these by hitting the F1 through 4 keys independently. So if I hit F1, it's going to take me right to shuffle. F4 is going to take me to grid. F2, slip. F3, spot. So F1, 2, 3, 4 cycles between those 4 selections here. Just remember, a quick note about that. If you're going to be using the F keys, you would have to have your key commands disabled by the Finder if you're using a Macintosh. Finder uses those keys, the function keys at the top of your keyboard, for different things, and so you would have to deactivate that in your preferences. And if you miss that, you can go back to your last chapter and take a look at how to do that. We walk you through that process. So, without further ado, let's go over each one of these editing modes and see the value here of each one and where you would start using these in different situations. The 2 that I use probably mostly are going to be slip and grid mode, but definitely there's some spots, some applications where I would use shuffle or spot mode. But we'll start at the top, start with shuffle mode really quickly, really easy to understand. I know it's kind of difficult to understand that through the text, so seeing it in action is often the best way to understand what's happening with shuffle mode. What happens with shuffle mode is that when you're moving a region, it automatically condenses to the region in front of that, and I mean earlier on the timeline. So I'll give you an example. If I move this region here, it's automatically going to shuffle to the region in front of it. Now I can't move it back because shuffle mode means that everything shuffles up on the timeline. So everything shuffles up on the timeline, and all regions move to the region in front of them. So the same thing happens if I'm deleting regions, right? If I'm deleting regions, everything I delete automatically shuffles forward here, okay? Now I can move regions in different orders with each other, but only if they're next to another region. So this space will always be here. There's nothing I can do to alleviate this amount of space here, right? This space will be there somewhere on the timeline. Now if I move regions around, it will just shuffle everything in order there, right? So it's very useful if you're doing things like dialogue editing in film or so voiceovers or something like that. Say you have a region of space that you want to eliminate. It's just a matter of going in and grabbing the audio in between your waveforms and then deleting that. You can do it really quickly using shuffle mode and not have to move each region. Otherwise, it would be a 2-motion process. This makes it a 1-motion process. Go in here, grab the silence, and eliminate it. Make sense? Good. So let's talk a little bit about slip mode. Slip mode and grid mode are, again, probably the modes that I use most frequently. I think it'd actually be better to talk a little bit about grid mode first. You see these gray lines that are running down your Pro Tools session. I'll zoom in on them so you can see them a little bit more clearly. Talking about these lines here. Each one of these is a grid value, and your grid value is set by this region up here, which we'll talk about. Right now I have my grid value set to 1/8 notes. So if I'm in grid mode and I'm editing and I'm moving a region, you'll notice that everything I move snaps to the nearest grid value line, which is good for some things. If I'm in slip mode, everything I move is based on ticks, and we'll talk about ticks a little later on, but it's based on really, really small, minute values along my timeline here. So if I'm in slip mode, I can move anything anywhere I want on my timeline. If I'm in grid mode, I move everything based on these lines that I set. If I change my grid value, I change the ability for me to move. and so on and so forth. So with grid mode, there are two ways of moving things. To better demonstrate this, I will move things off the grid for just a second here. We have absolute grid value mode, which if I move, no matter where a region or clip is, it moves that automatically to that grid value. If I am in relative grid mode, which I can reach just by pressing and holding, then it moves the clip that I'm moving by the predetermined grid value, but the actual clip stays relative to its original position. So it is moving by eighth note values, but it is staying off the grid where the clip originally started. So that can be useful for some things also. So slip and grid, again, to reiterate where I live most of the time. If I'm in grid mode and I want to erase things, I can select things, but it's always going to be according to what my grid value is. If I'm in slip mode and I want to erase and make arrangements, which if I'm doing some minute waveform editing is probably where I'll be. It doesn't matter where I start or stop or where I place the selector. It's going to be exactly where my cursor is. In grid mode, again, if I place my selector, it stays on those grid lines. So pretty simple. Last one we have here is spot mode. Spot mode is useful for certain applications, film. I used it most recently in a voiceover session I was doing. It was for a commercial, and there were several different cities they were airing the commercial in. So I had one 90-second spot I needed to plug city names into. So I used spot mode to because what my session really looked like was, say this was my audio here, right? Move this back to slip for just a second. So this is my audio session. There would be little holes in the audio where the city name came in. Let me get rid of this for a second, show you kind of how I would edit it. Grab this section. We'll pretend this is my city names, right? So, if I want to put this region in here, one thing I can do is I can come up here and then try to line it up as best as I can and things like that. Or if I wanted to move this region, to a specific place on the timeline that I've already got mapped out here, we'll just call it bar 1, beat 1, tick 0. Bar 1, beat 1, hit the button, and it automatically puts that region where I want it. Bar 31 moves it down to bar 31, and there's our region. For this one, do 3, beat 1. So it moves that to beat 3, beat 1. So you can see how this would be useful in certain situations. So on and so forth. I mean, really, really easy way to navigate through and put things in specific situations. The key is just knowing where you want to put it. So that's it for now, guys. Again, review all this stuff. Practice makes perfect. See which one of these edit modes, is most suitable for what you're trying to accomplish, and then start using that. And when you get in the habit of using it over and over again, you get good and you get fast at it. So that's it for now, guys. Stay tuned. More to come.